yeah. Some of the jokes were, like it was a different, but everything was good. Yeah.
Feel good. I can't wait to see the after of this. When I first met Intisar Abioto, I'll never forget her commenting that Portland is like a city that the civil rights movement passed by. Intisar being from Memphis and me being a lifelong Oregonian, I thought it was fascinating. This was in 2013. We've since become friends and collaborated on a variety of projects. In fact, Intisar's work documenting Black life in Oregon and showcasing Black Oregon artists has received international recognition. The conversations around transplants, meanwhile, have seemingly only intensified. Go to any Black Portlander's social media page, and you'd think we're in the midst of a civil war. Considering how spread out Black Oregonians are, it makes sense. Between Oregon's history as the only state to pass Black exclusion laws, decades of gentrification policies and general economic conditions, and more recently, the COVID-19 pandemic, it's easy to see how these discussions have become more online and gotten more polarizing. But are these tensions really that bad? We brought together Black Oregonians from a variety of backgrounds and perspectives to hash it out. Knowing we were going into a discussion based in division, we made a conscious decision to make the whole production as Black as possible. We partnered with Yifani Bell and Open Signal Labs to shoot the dinner with a predominantly Black film crew. We also received a sponsorship from Imagine Black to support renting out a Black-owned location, Louisa PDX, and ordering catering from a Black-owned food cart, Meals for Heels. Imagine Black utilizes a Black queer feminist lens to imagine alternatives that serve the Black community and build political participation and leadership to achieve those alternatives. Using this as a guiding light, we entered into the Black Oregon Natives and Transplants dinner. If you're on any of these like online Black Oregonian, Black Portlander groups, you might as well think like there's like a civil war between transplants and Black people born here. So my question would just be, one, what is behind that tension, and is that tension perceived more than reality?
I would like to speak to that. I believe it's our educational system, because you would get that information if it came to you through your classroom. And it is part of this U.S. history that is erased. I don't care what you call it, but it's part of that information that we're used to passing information down from generation to generation. Well, when you come and you don't get it, then you could step on somebody's toes you don't know. All these things can transpire that aren't really caused by us, but we end up causing harm to each other.
I would say that I feel like a lot of it is based off the individual. I think that at the end of the day, we're all hungry for community. We're all hungry for people to respect us, for people to acknowledge our existence. And I find that it's easier to take up that gripe and take up that anger with somebody who looks like you or is also marginalized than it is to be mad at the systems that be and the people in power that hold us apart. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like whenever I see stuff like that, like if it's someone who's a transplant, I'm just like, dog, you need a hug, you need to hang out, like you need a friend. I get it. Like this place is really white, and you're like feeling like, why isn't nobody coming to like make sure that I'm okay? It's like I got you. Like we can work on that. And then folks who are native Portlander, I think sometimes it's easy to forget that there's always everyday new Black people moving to Portland.
Right.
And it's like there's just so many of them. It's like, how do I even start to reach out to one? What do you even like? Do you like the same stuff I like? Like, are we even gonna gel? And I think that is something that's hard to do. Because I would say that that's the weird thing with where my experience has been, is I'm a native Oregonian, but the rest of my family is not. And like even between me and the rest of my siblings, that experience does make a difference depending upon how you were welcomed or how you weren't welcomed, and how you perceive the rest of the world after that.
Has that changed at all? Has that, I guess, been even more ingrained?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's interesting. That was maybe that was 9 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I feel the same and different. You learn more about people's efforts And I feel like I always try to approach my experience here as someone who's been here for 12 years, but is also a transplant. It's just like a practice of acknowledgement of like people's efforts. And yeah, I mean, at the time, I think there were things happening with black children being taken from black like families, like where Cason's is now. Like before the development, there were like black families that were like protesting, and so I remember talking to my mom about that, who works in the law, you know, and just about like strategy. And so yes, I mean, I feel that in some ways because you'll hear stories here, you'll be like, what the hell, you know? It's like whether it's like kind of like learning about about Williams Avenue before, you know, it's like these weird ghost stories, and then you're like, you know, and I do feel that way, but I also want to acknowledge like the efforts of like black people here.
I look at it like Portland is like a small church. I don't know if anybody ever went to a small church. And in a small church, all these weird conversations come up because you're so familiar with Sister Mary Clarence, you know her whole family, and so there's all this drama that keeps up at small churches because we know each other. That's kind of how I look at Portland. Like everybody kind of knows each other. They've seen each other. I know your cousin. I know your auntie. That's my brother.
Grandchildren of the children
Right.
I taught.
All of that, and so then there's this familiarity. Like, oh, I'm not gonna let you be a star. You might have done this, and that, but I know you, and I know your past. And I think that we have to grow up. We've got to grow up. Everybody has a past. Everybody has a story. There's nobody perfect, but we all bring something to the culture.
Some of us have a present.
To you, girl.
Like
That's
some
why
of us
you
have
all
a
mind
present.
ratchet
Got
shit
to
up
throw
front.
down,
That
but
was-
that was me.
And then, you know, as black community, you know how sometimes we have like all these secrets that we just don't let things out. I feel like Oregon has more secrets than almost anywhere I've ever been. And we're holding it really tight. And some of those things are the things that are gonna help us heal and get to the other side. So it's gonna be interesting to see how we deal as a community, because culturally, whether you're in Oregon, Florida, New York, DC, we keep secrets as a culture. I think the difference is over here, it's just such a small population. We've got to let go of some of these secrets that hold us back.
Thank you for your permission. I'm letting them out.
Well, I think that's also the benefit of being in Portland is there's enough of us to where there's the diversity, there's the differences, but there's not so many of us that we can sweep things under the rug and avoid problems.
No.
And so it forces us to have to talk about it, forces us to have to deal with it. And I think that makes us stronger for it.
So I can follow up with that because that's, I think, important on a personal level, thinking of the freedom of, like, the ignorance is bliss. Like, me moving here, maneuvering around the way in which I did, I don't know what the boundaries are, so I'm just showing up. I know all the politics at home, so I know I can't do certain things. So here, that wasn't there, so I was able to maneuver through this city, and that's kind of how I built up the network in which I have. And I think there's something to that also in the just, like, I joke about these being trophies, okay? So a lot of people don't get to that point where I'm from. And so with that understanding, it's like, I got bubbles in my car right now. I'd be at stoplights, like, whew. That might seem corny as hell, but this is a freedom of, though I didn't play with this stuff when I was a kid. It actually seemed fun as fuck. So I would grab them, right? It's little things in which I feel like I've made it to a point here that it gave me that comfort of having to sit down and really fall back. The idea of being slower, and I always try to make sure I articulate when I'm talking slower. It's not like people are stupid or they think slower. It's the idea that you just don't have to pay attention to as many things in this place, and that's more of it. Anyways, with that, getting here and being able to sit back and relax, and being able then to start thinking about, okay, what do I want to do? I'm away from the homies. I'm away from home. I'm away from what's familiar. So what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do it the same way, do something different. And again, the doors have been open and it's been a path that's been built. So I think that's the type of freedom now, understanding that. Now, if I had that experience, 15 years prior, this could be a whole different lifestyle for me,
And I think that does at times I don't know, direct more of the pro-blackness that I've encountered since moving here that I do not encounter as much elsewhere, where you are looking into this much larger, almost from my perspective, utopian vision, as opposed to as long as my lights don't get cut off or the police don't come around this block. You know, those were the sorts of concerns in other places I've lived, or just from my vocal patterns, from the fact that I am this. Elsewhere, that was enough to disqualify me from blackness. Whereas in Portland, no one says shit. So I think that allows black people in Portland to perhaps dream a little larger than in a lot of other places.